What is up, everybody? It's Ed Gow Jr. of Dad Central Ontario with
Drew Solon of Dad Central Ontario. All right today, Ed.
I'm outstanding, Drew. What's going on in your world?
Well, the typical family stuff. I think as I was anticipating this question, planning for a weekend because the baby's coming soon, like sooner than we probably realize. And if I'm being honest, I don't feel prepared. I don't even think we got the house ready. And Kristen this morning says to me, "Hey, I don't want to alarm you, but I'm feeling kind of crampy." So anyways, we'll be ready, but it might come sooner than we expect. So we got to get some stuff done.
Well, I'm speaking, first of all, to a healthy delivery and a healthy mother and maybe even a healthy dad, too.
Healthy dad is good. Healthy family is good. It's all good. I'm sure she about 5 months later, she said, "No, everything's good. I'm all fine now." See?
There you go.
So we're all good.
She's got it under control.
It could be go time any day now. So we should probably get on getting ready. We don't even have the bag packed for the hospital. So
I guess we have to get through this episode real quick because we don't know what's going to happen.
By the end of the day, I said to her, Kristen, we should probably have the bag packed. Can we start that? She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." And her mom's actually coming into town tonight. So they're going to do it together and make sure we're all set and ready to go. So, but hopefully we got a couple weeks to go still. So that's where we're at.
Well, you're not in control of that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. As long as you know that's the most important thing. So as we continue to banter, we should say this. The Dad Central show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. And we have another new friend for y'all today. And I think one of the many things that is wonderful about this new friend, he is a #1 best-selling author. #1. We every person or every dad or every person that loves dads has a very unique characteristic. So this is another unique characteristic. We have a #1 best-selling dad, I think, as of we're talking right now on this platform. So, and the nice thing, he approached us. So we're doing something all right. We're not pandering. They're coming after us now.
And I think it's great when we just create space to have conversations that are real, but hopefully inspire dads to, get involved and to just engage with their whole fathering role. So it's exciting to actually have Mark Craven. He's the author of several books, and he writes a self-development blog for his website, www.successupahead.com. He also hosts a podcast, The Craven Effect, and he's worked as a math instructor, a student success coach, a senior academic advisor at the college level right now. So Mark holds a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in higher education management, and he lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with his family. And as you said, his new book, Dads Kiss Your Sons, is a #1 bestseller. So Mark, welcome to the show. Excited to have you here, and thanks for joining us.
Mark, you are on mute, so let's do that. And there we go. We got you now. You passed.
Hey, I just want to thank you guys so much, Ed and Drew. Really appreciate you letting me come on and share some of this with you. And yeah, it's weird to hear best-selling author, but I like it.
Are you getting even a little bit used to it?
No.
Will you ever get used to it?
I don't know. I'm working on it. It's been a goal for a long time, so I'll try to settle in.
Well, we're happy to have you today, and also thank you for asking us to have you on the platform. So I know it's going to be a really great conversation, and I'll hand it over to Drew.
Well, thanks, Ed. And thank you, Mark, for coming on the show. As I've been reading your book, Dads Kiss Your Sons, I've really enjoyed it. First, it's your story, which is engaging. It really draws you in. But it's also emotional. I found myself wondering, man, what would it be like to experience what Mark's experienced? Or to, have some of these, feelings that you're talking about myself. And so, I think you've done a great job. So just at the front end, encouraging people. It's a bestseller probably for a reason. So it might be something you want to check out. But I'd love to talk a little bit more about your story. And with our show, we like to get a little bit of a backstory, and what was life like for our guests kind of growing up, just to get, and then what was the relationship like with their dad. And so we know yours is unique. Why don't you just hit us right out the get-go? Like, what was life like for you growing up, and tell us a little bit more about how that's led to where you're at today.
Sure. Yeah. So you might be referring to my first memory, which was seeing my mom cut her wrist with a steak knife. That might be triggering for some people. I should have probably prefaced that. But she didn't. She was having a very heated argument with my grandmother. It was something that I eventually got used to. That just the screaming and yelling. But yeah, my earliest memory was seeing her come out of the kitchen with a steak knife and going at her wrist and screaming, "Is this what you want?" to my grandmother. My grandmother grabbed the knife out of her hand, threw it in the sink. I mean, I still hear the clanging of the knife hitting, the sink, and that's one of my first formative memories. So yeah, it wasn't a good time, and I didn't know my dad. I didn't have a dad. I grew up without a dad. So yeah, once fast forward a little bit, when I found out I was going to be a dad, I was terrified because I just didn't have a background or an understanding and really what a healthy family looked like. So yeah, it was kind of rough. My mom, she had a lot of sort of untreated, undiagnosed mental health issues, and that's led to me being a huge advocate for mental health practices, therapy. I mean, I'm very open. I take 40 milligrams of citalopram every day. I'm very, I wear it on my sleeve. I do therapy and counseling. So yeah, that, having grown up in that environment, it was rough. And the other thing, I remember I was in second grade. I was like 7 years old, and I made a vow to myself to never get my hopes up because I was always let down. That was another thing my mom kind of did, is she would promise, we're going to go, do this thing tomorrow. We're going to do this thing tomorrow, and then tomorrow would come around and we wouldn't do that thing. So it built a lot of insecurities in me. So I brought that into adulthood. And that's been one of the biggest things that I've had to fight, especially being in a relationship, with, even my wife, I've had trust issues my whole life. So thank God I have her. She doesn't set off a single trigger in me, but, even without that happening, I still battle these thoughts and I still battle these things that I have to deal with, all based from, sort of that broken childhood. It wasn't all terribly bad. I had really great people in my life, my grandmother and my great aunt, and then my great aunt's daughter, Vicky. Like they all pretty much raised me. I have a chapter in the book called, it's about It Takes a Village, and that was part of my village growing up. So, their relentless love, it really pulled me through a lot of that stuff. So that, I think that contributed to making me the person that I am right now. Absolutely made me the hugger that I am, and the advocate for kissing our kids nonstop. But yeah, it was definitely challenging. Just walking through all that stuff. Yeah, it wasn't a great time.
But I just want to ask, during that stage of growing up, what kept you going?
I remember coming home from school, probably like maybe around like 13, and I would I was like, depression was sunk into me so deep by that point in my life. I remember just coming home and staring out my bedroom window for hours, just staring. And a lot of times our cable would be shut off, or our phone would get shut off. We wouldn't really always have, food in the house. But, so it was hard. And the thing that got me through that was music. I would listen to, so I'm a metal guy, so I was listening to Korn. They got, 1998 Family Values Tour, and like their album that came out 98, Follow the Leader. That stuff, that just woke something up in me. And it showed me like, you can do something with your life to get out of here, to get out of this gray, dead space, you know? So I started playing guitar, and I used to practice guitar till my fingers literally bled. Because to me, this was my escape. This is how I was going to get out of this stuff. So it was really music, excuse me, that kept pushing me forward, and, you know, helping me to hang on, along with the support of, you know, people in my life that loved me and helped me. My aunt, though, I have a whole chapter dedicated to her. She, you know, it's called The Best Person I've Ever Known. She helped me get my first guitar, you know, the first Ibanez. And of course, Ibanez is the guitars that, you know, Brian and Monkey play from Korn. So
Yeah.
that was a special moment for me to get that guitar. So yeah, it was music. That's what really pushed me through. Music, my aunt, though.
Go ahead, Drew. Drew's on mute. There we go.
Thanks, Ed. And
No problem.
Mark, so I don't want to stay here too long, but the sense I got as you were sharing a little bit more about that early years, and of course that story is pretty, that'd be very shocking for a child. But there is the sense I got was just a lot of heaviness there. And I want to reference, actually, I think your first chapter of your book. You've got a statement that's, you know, Dr. Bruce D. Perry writes, during the first 3 years of life, the human brain develops 90% of adult size and puts in place the majority of systems and structures that will be responsible for all future emotional, behavioral, social, and physiological functioning during the rest of life. And so knowing that your early experience was quite heavy, and that you put in that book, you know, it would take a lot then to be able to pull yourself out of that and drive through. And Ned asked the, you know, great question, you know, what kept you going? But can you talk about the importance maybe of those early years in life? And I think this might connect to, you know, what we'll talk about later and why you've written your book. Can you talk about, like, how important do you think that is as a dad to really take to heart this message of, you know, those early years for a child can make a big difference, and hopefully not having that type of heaviness that you might, you know, you're still working through.
Yeah, it's extremely important. That's one of the messages in the book is, you know, we don't have to reflect the things that we've seen. You know, we don't have to create the environment that we knew. Just because we knew an environment of brokenness doesn't mean that we have to introduce our children to environments of brokenness. We have control over that. And I think and we got to do everything we can to make sure that we do everything we can to keep that environment healthy. And the way that we keep that environment healthy is keeping ourselves healthy. Like I was saying, taking care of my own mental health, being aware of my own issues as far as depression goes, anxiety, trust, insecurities, all these things that, you know, I brought into adulthood, but I've been addressing forever, as long as I can remember, you know, doing all the things to take care of that. But it is, I mean, you know, as the research shows, it says, you know, 90% of our brains are formed, and a lot of it is right brain. So a lot of that's like the amygdala and the parts of the brain that are, you know, connected to the nervous system that are responsible for emotional behaviors and things like that. So, you know, when a little one, and I'm talking like birth to, and also good luck, Drew, and, you know, praying for a healthy delivery, and that's exciting. That's going to be awesome. But, you know, especially, you know, from birth, and I mean, I think forever, but as soon as you're able to hold, hug, and kiss that little, you know, cute, perfect, beautiful face. I know I'm obsessed. Look at that dude. He's so cute. I can't deal with it. But, you know, when you to hold them and to hug them and kiss them, like that's telling their brain a story. You know, no matter what your actions are, you're telling their brain a story. And it's one of two stories. Either the first story is, I couldn't be bothered with you. You're a nuisance. You're not safe. You're not secure. You're not okay. The other story is, you're safe. You're secure. You're strong. You're protected. You're loved. And that, what it does, again, because of those parts of the brain that are being formed, especially in those early formative years that are so important, what it's doing is, like, these neural connections that are happening, it's increasing coping capacity also. So by increasing coping capacity, that means when, the little one is, facing certain types of stress, different things like that, they can better handle it. So they're not overwhelmed by things so quickly. They're not as familiar with fear and trepidation and anxiety. They're more familiar with security and strength and comfort and love. So you show less fear in your actions as you progress through life. There was one study that I read and talked about in there. They split it down the middle, and it was a group of people that had a history of child abuse, whether it be neglect or something more serious, but they had a history of childhood trauma, and then the other group didn't have a history of it. So they introduced both groups to what they called a stress protocol. So they had them in a mock interview, and then they asked them a math question. And I taught math in college, so I know that if you say the word fractions, blood pressure just starts going up, no matter who you are. So they introduce them, they do this little stress protocol, and it showed that all the way down to the molecular level, that there were certain gene markers that were being set off based on the tiny amount of stress. And it all went back to the individuals that had childhood trauma. So that stuff stuck with them from, infancy and childhood all the way through adulthood, to the point that if they're just asked a math question, their genes are saying, we're in trouble, we got to go, we're not secure, we're not safe. So that's what we're doing with loving our little ones and holding them and hugging them. Those are the neural systems that we're building in them. Like I said, strength, security, they're just a little less familiar with fear, which I don't know if that's a good thing, because now I have a 2.5-year-old that does like backflips off my shoulders. Like that dude is totally fearless, which scares me a little bit. So I might be eating my words of this book. But yeah, it's very important to do those things and to overcome what you overcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think it's important that the dads or listeners recognize the importance of these steps right from the start. And I think, traditionally you might experience dads who are like, they don't really tend to get involved very much when the child's young. But what you're saying is that the science is very clear, plus your messages, the more you do it right from the time that child is basically able to be in your hands or in your arms and held, they need actually that physical touch. They need that warmth. They need that safety. They need that security. They need the responsiveness, right? Not reactiveness, the responsiveness to be able to develop in themselves for the rest of their life this capacity to withstand stress.
And they need it consistently, consistently from a caregiver. So when they hear your voice, they see you come through the door, they know, like, love is on the way. Just this consistency, because now they expect that, they expect these good things. And again, how your actions are going to tell their brain one of two stories. You want it to be that story, not the other.
Yeah. Well, given, do you want to hop in after this? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I want to comment something. Given your experience and story, and there's still layers to your story that I know we haven't touched on yet. Maybe given your experience, how challenging has that been maybe for you as you prepared for and then have now become a dad? Your son's 2.5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that then?
This is a big message in the book, and something that was tricky for me to write about, because Kai's going to read this book someday. And I recognize that. I was out of my mind, terrified to become a dad. My wife, she called me. I was on my way home from class, finishing my master's degree. And I mean, she was like just crying and sobbing. Like, she was hysterical. And, she's like, I took this test, I'm pregnant. I was like, you're fine. And, we got this. We're together. We're good. We went to dinner and, we had a good meal. And there was like a little baby with their family. I was like, look, that's going to be us. We're good. We're fine. And then literally like the next week, I was like, wait, you guys, I don't know if I could swear on here. I'll just not. But I was like, oh, shoot. I was like, it set in, and this fear just like gripped me, and it held on to me for like 2 weeks, to the point that I talked to her and I was like, I don't want you to go through with this. Like, I don't want us to do this. And if you do, not that I was like some controlling maniac, like you're going to do this. It was just like, I don't want to do this. And this is where I'm at. That's, what I was communicating. And I said, and if you do this, like we should look at adoption. And I mean, that where I'm sitting now, that makes me want to puke to say that. It really does. But I was that scared because of my past, and I didn't think I'd have anything to offer, a child, and especially a son. Like, I know I have big shoulders, but I don't know anything about sports. So I didn't have a dad, so I didn't know what dads did, but I didn't even know what dudes did, really. I was raised by, 3 women. So I was really scared. I was just terrified. And I remember talking to my cousin Vicky, who I already mentioned, and Vicky's become more of like mom, and Kai calls her Nunny. So he stays with her. He's there right now with Nunny. But I remember telling her, and she just got it was at Christmas and in 2019, and she just had these tears and she was so excited. And it just kind of like melted all the fear away. I was like, oh, I'm not in trouble. I'm not, because as I was growing up, she was the one like saying like, hey, keep it in your pants. Don't get in trouble. Don't do anything crazy. So when she was excited, it just kind of melted. And then literally the next day is when we found out it was a viable pregnancy, meaning he had a heartbeat. So, and I fell in love, and I felt totally in love. So once that happened, and then once he was in my arms, I mean, it was like lightning. It just hits you so fast, this love, that, I mean, I could write 20 books and it's not going to even touch on the love that I feel and have experienced as a dad. So like the message in the book is like, that was the worst possible thought I think you could probably have leading up to being a dad, is not wanting to do it and wanting to go through with this thing that is very controversial in the US right now. I think that's, so a lot of men probably sit with that, especially expectant dads, soon to be dads, maybe sit with that thought and that fear and think, nobody's having this thought. Nobody's, sure, people are scared, but they're not like thinking something like this. So for me to be vulnerable like that, I think it's important. And to also say, like, if you can just, this is the message, is like, if you could just sit through that discomfort and that fear long enough to get on the other side, like, the thing on the other side, wow, it is unbelievable. It's unmatched. It's the greatest gift we could possibly receive living on this planet, is becoming a dad or a parent, So yeah, that's it's part of that message.
I want to hop in here based on your journey when you were younger. And when you realized that you were going to become a father, did you start thinking what did and what I didn't want when it came to fatherhood?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was
some of that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can you share some of that with our audience?
I just didn't want to ever lie to my little boy or to say, none of those empty promises, because I just saw the damage that it did. And just being so present, it was so important to me to just be so present and loving in his life. And the thing is like, you set these like goals, or I want to be this kind of dad, or I want to do this, but then when it happens, it's also natural. One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given leading up to being a dad, because I'm asking everybody, I'm like, I don't know about this. This is terrifying. How do you do it? What are you doing? So, one of my cousins said to me, and he's been a dad for a long time, he was like, you learn on the job. And that was the best advice I think I ever got, But once it happened, it's just, everything is just so natural. You just so naturally fall into love. It's almost like pointless to have written a book like this, I feel, because it's just, as soon as you hold that baby, everything falls into place. I remember the nurse, when he was born, she was like, all right, I'm only going to show you this once. And she changed his diaper and, off to the races. I've been slinging him ever since. But even then, there was still a lot of, even when you're in that love and stuff like that, I do remember, in the night he was born and my wife was sleeping, I felt like I was in a new job, and I was hoping no one came through the door because I didn't know what I was doing. So like, he's sleeping and I'm kind of like, just stay sleeping because I don't know what to do if you wake up, So there is that fear, but again, man, the love is so overwhelming. It just, you know what to do.
I want to build on that too. And I don't know if anyone's asked you this. What is your son's name and why does he have that name?
Sure. His name's Kai, Kai. His name's Kai Aaron Craven. So um, honestly, the name Kai, I had read it in a story a while ago, and it stuck with me for years. And then when I saw the meaning of the name, it means sea, so like ocean, the sea. I just think it meshes with him. Like he's got this little surfer hair, he's got this little wavy hair, and he's just a wild little dude. So and honestly, like the love is like, I mean, you could drink oceans, that and it's not, it would never satisfy you the way that loving a little your little one does. But and then his middle name Aaron, my wife's name is Aaron, Erin. His middle name is Aaron, Aaron. So he's sort of named after her, but he's also named after Vicky's son, who's again more like my little brother. His name's Aaron, Aaron. So Kai Aaron Craven. Yeah.
Would you say the birth of your son has brought out love that you've never been able to bring out before?
Yeah, because you don't know it's there. That's part of the gift. You don't know, you don't know that you even are capable of loving like you do when you become a dad. You don't know it exists. It doesn't exist until you're dad.
Okay. Back to you, Drew.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Mark. The thought I had as you were sharing were, especially, I was thinking about dads who maybe wouldn't have that same level of, they wouldn't have that same experience, right? But they're terrified. And I really, I don't know if there's somebody listening now who is, in that place and they're terrified. And I know your message was, just stick around long enough, sit with that discomfort long enough. I think there are a lot of people who don't sit in discomfort. A lot of people who aren't willing or vulnerable enough to actually even recognize it. Like you said, you recognized you were fearful. And so, I mean, if somebody is, in that place, they're terrified, but they haven't had the space to either, recognize it, or the space to even maybe communicate it to someone else. They don't have a partner who's as supportive, or they're worried that they're going to be judged if they said, like, I feel terrified. I don't know how, like, what would you say to that person if he's talking to you and he's like, man, I'm terrified. What would you say to him?
That that reminds me of some more research, and it is related to, and it's obvious, is so much of the focus is obviously on the mom during pregnancy, right? But and understandably so. Their bodies are going through these incredible changes. Erin, my wife, she actually had HG, which caused her to puke 8 to 10 times every single day. I mean, she was so sick. And I mean, every day I was just like, you're doing everything you can to support that person and help them, so for me to sit there and be like, she's puking literally 10 times a day. And I'm sitting here like, I'm scared, so you don't want to, it's almost like your fear isn't valid, but it is, so I would encourage that person to talk about what they're feeling, with anybody that they can. And I think it's important too to get in with counseling, even if you don't think you need therapy or anything. I think you should still talk to someone to see maybe you do. Because it's hard to see. Walking through all the stuff that I walked through was sort of that gift and blessing at the same time, because it did expand my awareness and capacity to sit with myself and analyze things in ways that a lot of people are, it's sort of ignorance is bliss kind of thing. Like, it's a good thing you don't know how to do this, because to have gotten here, it wasn't a good time. So I think a lot of people need help with that. A lot of people need help processing, even getting to that point of saying you're scared, because again, our society doesn't let men talk about fear. It doesn't let men talk about feelings. To be a man, you have to, I don't know, like sports and, I'm not trying to come down. I'm not a sports guy. I look like I should be, but, I'm just not. And that's, one of the things I talk about too, is just, it's just important to just be who you are. But yeah, I think it's hard for men, again, because society is saying like, you shouldn't feel those things anyway. So maybe that's been so ingrained that they don't even acknowledge that it's possible to be afraid, so yeah, they are sitting there with that. So I would just say, definitely talk to somebody. And, unfortunately, sometimes, it's not your partner that you could talk to. You might be in a situation where you can't bring that to the other person. But there are people that are going to support you and help you figure this out. So don't, if you're like, yeah, I'm really about to go run out the door, but, Mark's saying like, stick around, but I don't know how to do that. Go talk to somebody, figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I want to maybe jump back to a part of your story again that I read in the book. And, it's really an interesting twist. Somebody came into your life when you were 22,
Mhm.
right? But then it turned out to not be what you thought. Can you share this part of your story? Because
Yep.
and then I'd love to explore a little bit more about your real dad.
Yeah.
Not that was
So,
a little foreshadowing.
yeah, it's good foreshadowing. I like that. So when I was 22, I had somebody reach out to me, of all places, on MySpace. So this is how long ago it was, 2000, when was it, 2008. I had a guy reach out and say, I have information on your dad's side of the family if you're interested in learning about it. So again, I never had a dad growing up, but I was also never one of those people that held this sort of unfounded anger, like, oh, if I ever meet my dad, I'm gonna knock him out. That's never was me. So I was open. I was open to it. I was open to meeting him, and I met. His name's Mark, also, and he's my. I was named after him, and he, was my dad. And my whole life, I mean, my family told me who my dad was. His name's Mark, and um, we met. He was a great guy. Just he lived in this sort of castle like house. At the time, I was living kind of in the ghetto. I had a big hole in my ceiling. I was 22, so yeah, I had like no money. I wasn't in school. I was doing my band thing, chasing that, and then I met this guy named Mark, who again I thought was my dad, and I was told my whole life he was my dad. So I ended up moving in with him. He was like, if you want to live with me, I'll pay for you to go to school. He opened all these doors for me. So I moved in with him. Like I said, like this huge house. I felt like I was walking into like MTV Cribs or something. And he offered me a chance to go back to school, and I wasn't sure because I didn't really. I kind of hated high school, and for me, I was like, all right, we'll see. But the band was kind of hitting a wall, and I just needed to do something different. So I did go back to school, and after 3 years, I lived with him for 3 years, and I went back to school and did surprisingly well at school. But he wanted to put me on his health insurance. I was 25 at the time, so we have different last names, and we had to do a paternity test because we had different last names, and it came back negative. So we found out he wasn't my real dad. And we didn't know. I mean, we were both kind of in the kitchen, swabbing our mouths, like laughing, like, okay, this is stupid. But then it came back, and I mean, I've known my mom for a long time, so to me, it wasn't. Things didn't change between us, and I was just like, oh, well, this is just another something that could fall out of her playbook. So I kind of wasn't surprised, but for him, it really took him to his knees. Things didn't change between us. I still call him dad. I mean, this is where we at. We're like 15 years later, or 12 years later, and I still call him dad. We still meet for breakfast like every month. He knows Kai knows him. So, he's just a really great guy. But then I found out, so I told Vicky, who I keep talking about, Kai's Nunny, I told her about it, and kind of through tears, she was like, I can't believe this, but, look up a guy, he wrestled in the WWF in the 80s. And I pulled up this video on YouTube, and it was like looking into a mirror. So there was just no question about it. Looked just like me. The other part of this is my Mark, who I thought was my dad, was also Italian. So I was told my whole life that I was Italian. When I came to find out this wrestler was my real dad, he's black. So overnight, my ethnicity changed. And along with all that, my mom was particularly racist as I was growing up. So that was a lot of fun to unpack and sit with and try to figure out, what it meant, if anything, because thankfully I had my aunt. My Aunt O was this everybody's welcome. She loved everyone. She was so fun to be around. Everyone loved being with her. So thankfully, my whole life I really took from her as opposed to my mom. So yeah, that was something.
Wow. Wow. Got a question for you, Mark. Conversation piece. A few moments ago, you encourage fathers, especially fathers who are expecting for the first time, to be who they are.
Mhm.
I'd like to know, who was Mark before the birth of Kai, and who is Mark today after the birth?
Well, I definitely wasn't. It. That's a great question. It deepened my compassion it deepened my heart and my capacity to love and to be selfless. Because when you have a little one, I mean, they're gonna puke and poop and pee all over you, all over your clothes, all over your everything.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
that's coming again.
It's coming.
Yes, again, I'm
Yeah.
glad you said again, Drew. Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone who's listening or watching, it's not the first time. Drew's a repeat offender,
Maybe
Yeah,
number
so
5, Ed.
right, you thought you were away from it, but it's coming back, Drew.
I'm a veteran these days. I got this.
Right. So yeah, I think I don't know. Here's one of the biggest things that changed in me. That's such a good question, Ed. Wow, thanks. One of the biggest things was before Kai was born, I was never home. Even when I was with Aaron, we were living together. I would always be. I mean, I would always be at Barnes and Noble. That's my place, or Starbucks. I would just. That's what I'm into. I drink coffee and I read books and I write. I'm a big geek. Again, don't let the shoulders fool you. I'm just, I'm not how I look. So every day, I mean, all day long, I would be down there. I would go to work, go to the gym, go to Barnes and Noble, and that it's pretty much my life. So as soon as Kai was born, now I mean, I just love being home. As long as I'm just with him, I don't care where we are, and we're home a lot. But he's also real. He loves Starbucks and he loves going to Barnes and Noble. So I'm raising him in that way. But I'm home a lot more, and way more than I ever was before. So it really like slowed me down and just kind of, I don't know, just let me be okay with where I was. It kind of calmed me down a little bit. I think always running, always being like that. I don't know. I think it was some type of leftover angst or anxiety, and now I can actually sit in the same place and be at peace and, I just love it. I mean, we watch the same movies like every single day. He's a Hubie Halloween fan. Adam Sandler, big fan. We watch Hubie Halloween and we just eat snacks and play, and I love it. I have to like kind of force myself to like go to places now.
Yeah. Well, there's another line in your early chapters that I couldn't when I read it, it just really hit me, and it struck me as really important. So I want to read it, and I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about this. It was, just because you weren't loved a certain way doesn't mean you can't love a certain way. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. You didn't see a dad growing up. You didn't see love in your home. You can still have love in your home. You weren't loved by a dad. You can still love as a dad. You're not disqualified from loving because you weren't loved a certain way. You're not disqualified from loving a son because you weren't loved as a son. So, that's, that's really what it is you can change the narrative of your life. You can, you don't have to repeat those same past things. You can break those generational rhythms, those generational curses. They can stop with you. Again, you don't have to reflect the things that you've seen in your life. You can create and broadcast a whole new experience for yourself and your little boy and your family and your little girl. Kiss your daughters too. But yeah, you don't have to. I think that was like that was the biggest thing, is just there's so much healing waiting for you. I didn't even realize that was going to happen, but there's so much healing for you when you're loving your little ones. There's something called physiological synchrony, where it's called mirror neurons, where certain neurotransmitters are the same neurotransmitters that are firing off in your little one because you're holding them and you're hugging them and you're kissing them. Those same ones are firing off in your brain too, like dopamine, all these things. And then stress hormones are going down, and cortisol and things like that. And the good ones are coming up: serotonin, oxytocin, all the ones that bring healing. So it's I think that's been a really cool discovery was, finding that there's healing waiting for you if you just love your little one. That's it. It's it seems so easy, I think, as it is.
As the conversation goes on here, there's a word that comes up in my mind that I want you to expand upon: intentional.
Yep. Yeah. Beautiful word. Intentional. Absolutely. You have to, I think you have to be intentional. And I think awareness plays a big role in that too. Being aware of where you're at, because this time goes so quick, as you guys both know. And, honestly, Drew, I'm a little jealous of where you're at right now, because I love that. Even though Erin was so sick, she and I still reminisce, and we love that part so much. It was so fun. Um, but being aware of, just being in the moment, being right here, being nowhere else. So, when you're looking at that little one and you're just taking it in, so you're intentionally aware of where you're at, and you're just there. It's kind of hard to explain awareness and intentional living. Um, but and you do it every day, so you're intentional every day in being fully aware and fully present, because that's going to bring you so much just joy, like this crazy joy. So you're intentional in a good piece of being intentional that I do every day is I do bath time every single night. I don't miss bath time with Kai. So he the only time I miss it is if he stays at Nunny's house or if he stays at his other grandma's house. But I don't miss bath time every single night. That's what we do, since he was little. And that's intentional. You're intentional in, okay, let's, it's this time, we go up here, we do it, and, get you up, get you ready for bed and cleaned up. So, just having those little rituals that you have, and being intentional with them, making sure and realizing how important they are, just, it's been wild just watching his little bath time progression. First he started as, tiny baby Kai with, the little tub sitting in the tub. And then he moved on to like the seat thing that he could sit on. And now he's just in the tub, and now he just drinks all the water and just is crazy. After he pees in it. But, it's, I think that, when you're intentional in the things that you're doing, you're intentional in being a dad, you're intentional in being present, you're intentional in creating this environment that you want to create for your little one. You'll do it. You'll do it. You'll read the right books. You'll talk to the right people. You'll listen to the right podcasts. You'll get around healthy individuals. You'll get yourself healthy. You'll do the things that you need to do so that you can be everything you need to be for your little one.
Yeah. It makes me, I think I want to try and connect, this idea of a dad who's terrified and, staying with that and being able to work through that. But then also what you said, there's so much healing that Kai has brought, as you've now gone down this path and he's 2.5 years old, and, this idea of presence. And so, I want to connect all these things especially for anyone who's listening, who is in that place or was in that place, because I feel like it's so important to recognize, it's not just about this idea that, I don't have anything to offer, right? That fear, I don't have anything to offer my child, but guess what? Your child can't offer you. And in fact, there's a lot that you can gain benefit. So it's not just about you, because you are going to benefit, but that child's going to see a huge benefit to you. So anyways, if you're listening, I just want to encourage you. I think Mark has done a fantastic job of capturing this, but I want to encourage you. There's so much involved that you don't even know, and so much you're going to gain and take away from it if you're willing to stay present, stick with it, invest in that child, and you'll see the rewards on the other side. And some may, surprise the heck out of you in a real amazing way. So again, I'm just enjoying this conversation and hearing about this story, but there's also one final component I'm curious about, because it felt heavy for me as I was reading this in your story. And it's about the fact that you have reached out to, the person you found who is your biological father.
Yeah.
But the response was essentially no. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of how you are? Because I'm very impressed with how you've worked through this and how you are continuing to move forward in a healthy, positive way. So can you talk a little bit about that? Give people a little context, and then how are you doing what you're doing to move through this in the way you're doing it?
Sure. I've been getting that so my wife is on Reddit. Like I don't understand Reddit yet. I'm still learning. But she posted something about my story and related to this. And a lot of people asked, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Wow, that's I haven't thought about that. Yeah, I'm okay, but thanks for asking." Some days I'm more okay than other days, but yeah, years ago, again, I was 25. So right now I'm 37. So this is, again, 12 years ago, I found out Mark wasn't my real dad, and I found out this wrestler was. And I stay away from naming him publicly because of legal things and stuff like that. I don't want to be hit with like some kind of defamation lawsuit or something. But hey, no press is bad press, as they say. I still don't want to get sued, but so like I said, we found out he was. I mean, there was just no question. Like I said, I pulled up this video and it was like, oh, I mean, it was like looking into a mirror. I showed the video to people at the church I was going to, and I didn't say anything. I was just like, hey, look at this, and they were like, is that you? I was like, no, this is 1983. I wasn't born yet. So when we found that out, so Mark actually had reached out 12 years ago to this person, and he reached out on my behalf and just said, hey, this is what's going on. And, Mark is, he's not crazy. He's not looking for anything. Like and he actually sort of wrote this message and sent it to me. And he said, he's a child that I'm very proud of, which really meant a lot to me that he said that. And, Mark, my dad, he called me. He was like, I don't think this is going to go how you want it to go, because apparently this guy just blew up on him. He just lost his mind. He was like, if you contact me again, this is harassment. I'm going to call the police, blah, blah, blah. So we just kind of we just walked away, and then fast forward several years later, I found out I was going to be a dad. So Erin, my wife, got me an ancestry test, and she was like, let's just do this and see what happens. It connected me to an uncle. So an uncle who actually is in my life, and he wrote a little piece in the book about when we met and stuff like that. But the ancestry test, it was like a 99% thing. It was like, this is your uncle. So he was on there, and there was a picture of him with my dad, so I reached out to him and I just said, I'm not even looking for confirmation here. I'm about to be a dad, so I just need to know medical history. Is there anything in your family I need to worry about or know about before my son's born? Again, not even looking for confirmation, but obviously this is we're clearly connected. But he welcomed me really with open arms, and I found out I had a half sister who was like 20 years older than me. Her and I connected, and her and I have a really great relationship. Her name's Donna, but my real dad still does not want to connect, and he lives 4 miles away from us. We live in the exact same borough, so. Yeah, it's pretty wild. He actually agreed to answer some questions for the book when I was writing it, and he was only going to answer them through my sister Donna. So I sent the questions over, and it was fairly. I was just telling him about Kai, and I said I don't hold. It's all in the book. I actually included it in the book. I said I don't hold any ill will towards you. There's no animosity here. Like maybe we can get a coffee someday and talk. But he decided not to do it. He changed his mind, and I think the thing that it's never fun to be rejected. So 12 years ago, when he kind of was how he was, didn't feel great, but I don't know. I got past it. This time around, because everything was so clear, like so clearly, this is real. I think what hurt me was him missing out on Kai, and to me, I felt like it was a little bit of a rejection for him, and when it comes to Kai, like, I'll go to war, for that little one. So I think that's kind of what hurt me, but yeah, I mean, I'm okay. It didn't go how, the movies would like it to go, but okay.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you talked about was forgiveness and the ability to, I'm going to paraphrase, so don't quote me on this, but to give that forgiveness, to be able to free yourself and be able to stay present and stay engaged in the people who are in your life. and those who have embraced you and who have, said, we are family and we're going to treat you like family and connect with you like family. So I just thought that was a very important message, because it's very easy to get caught in, I think, anger, bitterness, resentment, and really hold contempt. And I say that probably more from personal experience and having had to work through that and find forgiveness myself. And so I really appreciate how you described the forgiveness and the importance of it. And I think that that was very powerful, especially given the fact that I didn't know he was that close geographically. So that makes it maybe even harder, but very important.
That's the thing, with forgiveness is like the flames of unforgiveness burn you, but the flames of forgiveness burn the chains off of you. Another part of forgiveness is you can think someone's but forgive them at the same time. Just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean you allow boundaries to be taken down. It doesn't mean you allow that person to, if that person's still around, to continue the toxic behavior that you have to forgive them for in the first place. My mom is still alive, but her and I really don't talk. We're really not that close. She knows Kai. She's met Kai. And, she gets pictures of Kai. She can visit Kai anytime she wants. But, her and I really don't. We don't have a relationship. So I won't even kind of dance around it. Now, I forgive her. I wrote this story not to bash her and not to, just say like, oh, it was so bad for me. All of us have been through, people have been through way worse stuff than me. But, everyone's pain is valid. And whatever broke your heart, it doesn't matter, if it was different than the thing that broke the person's heart next to you. But I wrote this, that was the story. That was what I went through. That was where I was at. That was what I experienced at that time. It's unfortunate, because it does kind of paint a picture of this monster, but that's kind of what I was dealing with at the time, and again, one of the messages is like, you don't have to reflect all the stuff that you saw, you don't have to. It can help you. It can help you, and you can see the things that you want to do better. We should just always be trying to do better.
Yeah. Great message. Absolutely. Ed.
Yeah. As we close out here, Mark, I just want to bless you that you've made your future bigger than your past.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's really what's resonating in me, that you've been through a lot of crap, and we all have, but something inside of you said, you know what, I'm better than this and I'm bigger than this. And you're doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I know that the biggest thing for you is those bathtub nights.
Oh yeah.
That's part of making bigger. So I just want to bless you for your journey, being open enough to share it and work it through you, not in you.
Amen. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys letting me come on and, share this message. I think it is an important message. And I think, it's kind of funny. I was sitting on the story for a few years. The book was originally going to be called Chapter 7 because it was my 7th book. I actually went bankrupt, back in 2018, Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So there was a lot of play on the word, but I just didn't see the point. I was like, why am I writing? My slur is crazy and, all this stuff. And I just didn't know I didn't see the message. What was the message? But I randomly commented on a friend's Facebook post and said, "Dads, kiss your sons." And it hit me. I was like, that's it. That's why I went through everything. That's the message. That's the story, is to encourage men that are about to be dads, or that are new dads, or that have been dads for a long time. Just grab your little one and hug him and kiss him and just love on them. So, that's where the message came from.
I think it's a good way to end it off. Excellent. So as we transition to ending the conversation today, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you could go to my website. You can go to dadskissyoursons.com and see me on Instagram also. And the book is available pretty much anywhere you want to get books. Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, everywhere. So the ebook right now is only 99 cents. For a time. So jump on that and leave me a review. Let me know what you thought and reach out. Please reach out to me and, just connect with me. I just love talking to people about this stuff.
Drew, any final words we have for Mark before we let him go?
My final words from Mark are just thank you very much for your story and for the message that you are conveying through Dads Kiss Your Sons. And just and I'll share this when Ed and I do our little wrap up, but just the message of, what you experience doesn't have to be what you create for your children. So I think it's very powerful.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot,
guys.
Mark. We'll catch you soon. If there's anything we can do to help the message in your journey, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you guys so much. And this is beautiful work that you're doing. Incredibly important mission.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Be well. All right, Drew, another one is done. You have wrap-up time.
Thank you. Well, I really love the quote that I asked Mark about, which is just because you weren't loved a certain way doesn't mean you can't love a certain way. And Mark says it much better than I did when he talked about that message. But I think it's a great one to go away with, especially because we talk about this, especially when we do our training at Dad Central, that everyone has their own father experience, and there's a lot of father wounds. And so in order to kind of heal those things and not perpetuate them from generation to generation, you have to do what Mark's talking about. Like, just because you maybe didn't have that experience, you can change the future for yourself and for your family. And I think that's very powerful. So that's my takeaway from today. And he's an example of doing it.
Absolutely. For me, the phrase, you can always make your future bigger than your past. And I'm sure there were times in Mark's journey that he shared here that the future didn't look clear, probably looked cloudy, probably like a wooden door, couldn't see through it. But there was something inside of him, don't know where it came from, that said, I can be bigger and better than this. And not only did he use his own strength, but now he's transferring that strength to his son. That his son is going to be a living example of what the foundation that he's laid in his fatherhood journey, even before he became a father. That journey to make bigger. You always have the choice as a father to be bigger than your past. So as we wrap up today, as always, let's make sure you know that the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. We would love to hear from y'all. The best way you can do it, well, many ways. One of the best ways is podcast at dadcentral.ca. Via email, give us suggestions. God, what can we do? Is there people we need to have on this platform as we grow? Because we do it with you, not for you. We do it together, co-creative. Also, if you want to listen to episodes or watch episodes, dadcentral.ca/podcast. And then finally, we have millions and millions of free resources. A lot of them are free at the website dadcentral.ca. So as always, we'd like to say, remember to give yourselves grace. And remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and we'll see you soon. Be well and keep the faith.